One of our three guests tonight also has evil charisma. But which one is it? Is it Erin Molan, who you can see on Friday nights? Is it Nicholas Rees is the Deputy Lord Mayor in Melbourne, or is it, of course, James Morrow, who you can read in the paper or see on Sundays? Who wants to own up to it? Anyone? No one? OK, fair enough. It's me. Now, what about this today, where the Victorian Greens want kids to be able to get access to the injecting rooms of Melbourne, the capacity to take drugs in that facility where you won't be punished for doing so. Before we get to the Melbourne man, Erin, how do you feel about kids getting access to the injecting rooms?
This is appalling. This stuff drives me absolutely crazy. Just when you think you've seen the Greens reach a new low, they manage to go even lower, which blows my mind every single time. Why are we trying to make it easier for younger people to take illicit drugs? They're either illicit, they're illegal, or they're not. Why are we trying to help and almost encourage? It's the same as pill testing at big events and at parties and at raves. I hate that as well. Anything that makes it easier or safer for kids to take drugs will encourage them to do it more so. Enough. It's ridiculous.
Well, again, think about all of the different messages that we've had about smoking. Where's such the public education campaign around drugs? It doesn't exist. It is literally more socially unacceptable to consume the legal, destructive, slowly going to kill your product than the illegal one, which now too many people are trying to find ways to facilitate, James.
Well, you know, it's amazing, Paul, because in my home state of New York right now, there's a big effort on by the governor there, wonderful woman, Kathy Hochul. She wants to ban tobacco products but make marijuana legal. And
wow.
it's a symptom of this whole thing that's going on throughout the Western left. It is degenerate. There is no other word for it than degenerate. You know what? I read the story about, letting under 18s into the injecting room. I don't think anybody should be let into the injecting room. We should not have injecting rooms. We should have cells for drug dealers and drug users. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. You encourage the behavior you want more of. And maybe the left, maybe the Greens want a passive, stoned, dependent, addicted society. I don't.
Well, Nicholas, where is the call here? How many people under the age of 18 that you are aware of would even need such a facility? So is there an actual need the Greens are dealing with here, or is it one of those balloons they put up in order to solidify a young base?
Look, it's a complex issue, Paul. I mean, Erin rolling out a pretty simple line.
This is a TV show. We're not here for complexity.
No. The only problem with the just say no theory of dealing with drugs is it hasn't worked for decades. So we do need to try something a little bit more sophisticated, a bit more evidence-based. James says that people who use drugs should be in cells. I don't think that acknowledges the reality of the issue.
It works in Singapore.
I've had somebody in my family who's battled drug addiction, and I can tell you, James, that you're much better to have that person going down the medical route, dealing with doctors and health professionals, than with the justice system, because there are terrible spin-off consequences for all of us.
So how do you feel about under 18s getting access to that harm minimisation, mate?
Yeah, so look, I read that in the press today, and I've got to say my first reaction was one of absolute horror. The idea that a person under the age of 18 can be going to a health facility and be given drugs, it's pretty hard to get your head around it. But then you do need to just step through it and ask yourself the question, OK, if somebody who's 17 years old turns up to a safe injecting facility and they say, I've come here because I want to, take drugs, then you've got a human being who's probably in a very bad place in life. And I don't know that the right solution is to say to that young person, sorry,
how would your counsel react to a 17-year-old smoking?
But it's not the right solution to let them in either. Put them in the hospital, get them proper help, and injecting rooms not the right solution either. I agree it's not right to reject them, but you can't. Accepting them is not the right thing to do either.
Yeah, well, actually, I think that's right, Erin. I'm not actually sitting here saying, OK, come on in, young person, take a seat over there, get yourself comfortable and inject. But you need to have some sort of intervention there. I don't think we should be turning those young people away, because that is an extremely troubled person with some big issues, and we should be trying to reach out to that person and help them, not turn them away, or as James would seem to want, send them off into the justice system.
All right, let's talk about stadiums versus houses. I repeat, because you never hear this number, do you? 122,500 people are homeless in Australia. That's the biggest number ever. The income inequality, worse since the 1950s. 163,500 people are waiting for public housing. But when the government has a couple of $100 million, what are they spending it on in Tasmania? A new stadium for a Tasmanian football team. Now, if the AFL wants to pay for it, good luck to them. If a big business wants to pay for it, good luck to them as well. But I've got to say, I'm with the people of Tasmania who say, can we actually have some public housing? The public housing waiting list, I think, is about 2,000 in and around Hobart and outer parts of Tasmania. So I'll start first with you, Nicholas. If you had a choice of $200 million, what do you spend it on? Do you spend it on a footy stadium or do you spend it on public housing? Because we've taken the piss for too long, all sides too long. When there are literally more people waiting for public housing than there are seats in the MCG and more people homeless than seats in the MCG, we've got a problem. And that's why I'm cool if they take half of my money for tax. Not for stadiums, but to make sure people aren't homeless.
Yeah, mate, I'm 1,000,000% agreeing with you on that. You know, when I think, why do I pay my taxes? You know, health, education, defence, police, keep us safe. But I also think to put a roof over people's heads who absolutely need it. And so I think it's an absolute disgrace. And here we are, one of the most prosperous countries in the world. And we've got 140-odd thousand people waiting for homes, 120-odd thousand people homeless. Like, it is a disgrace. Yeah. But I don't think it's a binary choice between build the stadium or have homelessness.
Well, no, but it is because it's a priority.
We can do both.
There's only so much money. There's only so much money, and we're going to hear that about the great priorities. Are you going to break my heart here, James?
I'm sorry, Paul. You see, that public housing is going to spend this next 6 months urging a yes vote. The stadium will, because it's the AFL.
Of course, yes.
So,
yes.
you know, let's just think about the politics here for a minute. Unlike you, Paul, I am not happy for the government to take half my income. I think that is just insane, and it's totalitarian, and it's communist. But
I did say happy, didn't I?
You did say happy. We can play the tape for you, Paul. But, you know, the other thing, too, though, is that there's a real simple solution here. We've got supply and demand in housing, and it is completely out of whack. And the rental market in this country, everybody says, is completely screwed up. And what is this government doing? Immigration by stealth. They are going to bring in more people over the next few years than this country has ever brought in. Most of these people, when they land, are going to be renters because they're not going to buy a house right off the bat. That's just a fact of the matter. Now, it's great that we're a wonderful country that people want to come to. I came to this country, but you cannot dial the housing supply up like you can dial the population supply up. So why don't we look at the demand side a bit on this, you know? Because, no. Oh, you're racist.
You're racist. Oh, settle down. All right, Erin, how do you feel about this? Because apparently in the federal budget there's going to be some money for another NRL team. This one is going to end up being around the Pacific Islands, but their actual home city will be Cairns. All of this is about soft diplomacy against China, not at all about expanding the number of teams so that sports can demand bigger broadcast fees. Not at all. No, we are building a Tasmanian team because Tasmanian people want it. A Northern Australia team because people want it. But how do you feel about this?
Well, I just think, first of all, that it's utterly ridiculous that he would have done that just to convince the AFL to support the yes vote. Of course the AFL are supporting the yes. Would you expect anything different?
They were born, yes.
Money for a stadium to jump on board. That's what the AFL does. That's what all the codes and all the businesses who are woke will do. That's fine. Absolutely, they're right. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. But the government ain't walking, so they've got to stop chewing gum. They've got to walk first, provide housing, look after people, reduce the cost of living, which is what they promised throughout the entire election campaign, and look after our most vulnerable, which is what they consistently say they do better than anyone else, and then they can invest in a stadium. Let the state government look after it.
By the way, before people get too excited, some of the campaigners that are against this, that are against the stadium, one of the things they want, apart from public housing, is a truth-telling and reconciliation park. No, I don't want money on that either. I want money spent on the housing. All right, Nicholas, I've got Piers Morgan waiting, so it's you're going to piss him off, not me. So what do you want to say?
I'm sorry, I've just got to burst a bubble on this right-wing conspiracy fever dream that's building up in the Paul Murray studios here.
And it's not a studio, it's a man
you're all
cave,
missing
please.
here is this was a move in Tasmania which had bipartisan political support.
No.
Jeremy Rockcliffe, the Liberal Premier of Tasmania, put $375 million into this, okay?
The Labor
so you can go on about Albo or you like putting in 240, but the Liberals, a Liberal government put in more. A Liberal government put in more.
Hang on. Okay, so just double checking. What is the Labor Party's position at the state level in Tasmania on this stadium, Nicholas? Yes or no? Are they for it or against it?
I don't know. I hope they're for it.
The answer is no. I'll find you the tape and we'll do it later in the show. So bipartisan, no. Bipartisan, yes. All right, lots of fun, guys. Thank you very much.